I am afraid of the smell of burning meat. Not uncomfortable. Not bothered. Afraid. Every time that smell drifts into my nose, that so-called delicious smell people love at backyard cookouts, something happens inside me. My hands go cold. My vision narrows. I can feel my pulse in my ears. And for a moment, I'm not here anymore. I'm back there. Back in a place half a world away, under a sky choked with smoke. This has been happening for decades. Ever since I came home from Vietnam. That smell. I know it too well. And I'm certain that every soldier who fought in that war, maybe even in any war in Southeast Asia, knows it too. It's not the smell of celebration. Not the scent of a feast. It's the smell that crawls straight up from hell. A specialty dish war serves to the so-called victors. The smell of bodies, men, women, children, burned together with the huts they once called home. Sometimes those bodies were the enemy. Sometimes they were villagers. Sometimes they were just children who had no idea what a war even was. And I want to tell you my story. About the day I first smelled it. About how it's haunted me ever since. I was barely 20, still carrying that stupid kind of confidence young men wear into a war. We had just finished a reconnaissance mission near the edge of a valley, hot and dripping with the wet season's breath. The heat was alive, pressing in from every side, making each inhale thick and slow. Then the order came down, move into a village that had just been hit by artillery. The chopper blades faded into the distance behind us, and all that was left was the sound of our boots in the mud, and a far-off crackle like wood snapping in a fireplace. Smoke was rising ahead, not in a lazy drift but in thick black columns. They didn't sway in the wind, they held the sky up, like black pillars holding up a ceiling no one wanted to look at. We crossed what used to be a bamboo gate. It was still smoldering, the fibers curling in on themselves, the ash clinging to my boots. That's when I smelled it for the first time. Heavy, sweet, and scorched. At first I thought, foolishly, it was just the smell of burning wood, maybe cooking fires gone wrong. But a few steps deeper into that village, my stomach turned in a way that had nothing to do with hunger. I realized it wasn't wood. It was skin. Flesh. Human. The air was thick with it, clinging to the inside of my nose, coating my tongue so I could taste it. It got into my hair, my clothes, into me. The fire was still chewing through what was left of the houses. The crackle I'd heard wasn't just bamboo. It was the sound of beams giving way, of walls collapsing under their own charred weight. And somewhere beneath it all there were noises, low broken noises. A voice or maybe an animal's cry, I couldn't tell. It all sounded the same in that heat. We found survivors. Not many. They were huddled near a well, their faces blackened with soot, eyes wide and empty. One of my squad mates raised his rifle. Orders from up top were clear: better to kill by mistake than to let a Viet Cong slip through. I stepped between him and them. I don't know where that courage came from, or maybe it wasn't courage at all, just a desperate instinct to hold on to the last piece of myself that still recognized right from wrong. All I knew was that if I stayed silent in that moment, I would lose something I could never get back. We left those survivors behind. But we couldn't, save the rest. The fire kept eating. And the smell kept spreading. That night back at camp, I couldn't get the taste out of my mouth. I lay awake, staring at the canvas ceiling above me, hearing the hiss of flames that were now thousands of yards away. I knew somehow that the war had just carved something permanent into me. Years later, when I came home, I found out I was right. I'd be walking down the street in summer, and from the open door of a restaurant, the smell would hit me. Or I'd be at a neighbor's barbecue, and suddenly the chatter would fade, the laughter would vanish, and all I'd hear was the distant snap of burning wood. It didn't matter where I was, in a kitchen, in a park, in my own backyard. That smell always took me back. Back to the well. Back to the survivors. Back to the black pillars holding up the sky. War doesn't end when the shooting stops. It follows you home. It breathes with you. It seeps into your hair, your skin, the deepest folds of your memory. And for me, it lives inside that smell. The smell of burning meat. War doesn't end when the shooting stops. For me, it always begins the same way. With a smell. And to tell you about the first time, I have to take you back. Back to 1968. The air is vibrating under the rotors of a Huey, its shadow flickering across rice paddies below. My helmet is pressing into my forehead, sweat running down my temples, mixing with the dust the wind is kicking up. The side door is open. I can see the jungle breaking apart into patches of farmland. Somewhere in the distance, smoke is curling upward, small at first, then fatter, darker, heavier. 2 minutes, the crew chief shouts over the roar. His voice is a thin thread against the chopper's beating blades. In those days, 2 minutes could mean anything. 2 minutes to walk into nothing or 2 minutes to walk into hell. The Huey dips, flares, and then we're skimming just above the treetops. That's when the sound reaches me, not the engine, not the blades, but something deeper. A muted rumble like the ground itself is groaning. And underneath it, sharp cracks that could be bamboo exploding in the heat, or rifles firing in the distance. We touched down hard on a strip of dirt that used to be a path between paddies. My boots hit the ground, knees bending to absorb the shock. The helicopter lifts off again, leaving us in the sudden, suffocating stillness of tropical heat. My squad leader waves us forward. No one talks. We move in a staggered line toward the village. The only sound now is our breathing, the squelch of mud under our boots, and, somewhere far off, a single burst of automatic fire, then silence. The closer we get, the thicker the air becomes. Not just with heat, but with something else. A kind of haze that feels heavier than smoke alone. At the edge of the village, I hear it before I see it, the faint crackle of fire. But it's not the friendly kind you hear at a campsite. This one has a hunger to it. And then I smell it. At first, my brain tries to file it under something familiar, maybe roasted meat, maybe burning wood. It's thick, sweet, almost sticky in the air. My mouth goes dry. I step over the remains of a bamboo fence, the poles bent and charred, still glowing at the tips. My boot brushes against something soft and blackened. I don't look down. Ahead, what used to be a row of houses is now a skeletal line of frames, roofs caved in, walls gone. The flames are still feeding on them, orange tongues licking at the air. And the smell. God. It pushes into me like an invisible hand, fills my lungs without permission. The sweetness is the worst part. It doesn't belong here. It's the sweetness of something that should never be burned. The sweetness of skin. Fat. Of hair curling and crisping in heat. My heart stutters. I don't understand why it feels like it's folding in on itself. My legs feel heavier with each step, like the air itself wants to keep me here. A shape appears through the smoke, a wall leaning on itself, painted black with soot. As it collapses, the smell surges, stronger, closer, thicker. And I know exactly what it is. I can't tell you who the first body was, or the second, or the 10th. They stopped being people in my mind and became part of the landscape. But my stomach knew, my heart knew, my lungs knew, and from that moment I would always know. We pushed deeper into the village. The fire's heat is pressing against my skin, not like the sun, but like it's alive, reaching for me. I pass what used to be a doorway. Inside, there's nothing left but shadows and that smell, thick enough to taste. My squad leader signals to check for survivors. We split, moving between smoking piles and collapsed huts. That's when I hear it, a sound that doesn't fit the rhythm of the fire. It's wet, fragile, almost a whimper. Behind a toppled water jar, I find them. 3 figures huddled together, their clothes scorched, faces streaked with ash and something darker. Eyes wide, lips trembling, not speaking a word. Before I can say anything, a rifle barrel slides past my shoulder. Orders, the man behind me mutters. Better to kill by mistake. I step in front of the survivors. My voice doesn't sound like mine when I say, not today. There's a pause. The fire pops somewhere behind us. Finally, the barrel lowers. We move on. We leave the survivors where they are, not because I think they're safe, but because there's nowhere safe for them to go. The deeper we go, the worse it gets. The air is almost solid now, pressing into my ears, into my teeth. Each breath tastes like rust and ash and something far more personal. My hands smell like it. My uniform smells like it. My skin feels like it's been tattooed with it. By the time we reach the far side of the village, I am not the same person who stepped off that chopper. I've left something of myself back there, in that smoke, in that smell. No one told me war had a smell. And that smell would follow me for the rest of my life. No one told me that war had a smell. And that smell would follow me for the rest of my life. But that day, in that village, it followed me into something else. Something I still wrestle with more than 50 years later. Orders. The kind of orders you either follow, or you don't come back from. We were moving through what was left of the main street, if you could call it that. The fires were smaller now, reduced to glowing piles, their heat still licking at the air. My boots crunched on debris, bamboo splinters, bits of pottery, the ash of what had once been lives. Then I heard voices. Not English. Not shouting. Murmurs. Oh, scared. We turned a corner and there they were, 6 of them, huddled together in what little shade the remains of a wall could give. A man, 2 women, 3 children. The man's leg was bandaged with what looked like a torn shirt. One of the children clutched a woven doll, its face blackened from soot. My squad froze. And then the rifles came up. Orders, someone behind me said. I didn't have to ask which ones. The words had been drilled into us since we landed in country. Better to kill by mistake than let a VC slip through. The logic was simple, brutal, and, to some, unarguable. A civilian could be an informant. A child could carry a grenade. A wounded man could be faking it. But as I looked at them, the way the women's eyes were fixed not on us, but on the children, the way the man held himself between the rifles and the rest of them, my stomach turned in the same way it had when I first smelled the burning. I stepped forward before I even thought about it. Hold it, I said. My voice was steady, but inside, my pulse was pounding. They're not VC. You can't know that, the man with the rifle closest to me snapped back. His finger was inside the trigger guard. Look at them, I said louder this time. They're just trying to survive. Survive to tell the VC where we are, someone else muttered. My squad leader's eyes were on me now. This was the dangerous moment, not the guns but the silence between the men holding them. We have orders, he said. We can't take chances. I took a step closer to the family. You shoot them and it's not a war anymore. It's just murder. No one moved. The only sound was the hiss of something still burning nearby. I could feel every eye on me, my squad leaders, my squad mates, the families. Stand down, I said again, softer this time. Not a command. A plea. There was a pause that felt like a lifetime. Then one by one the rifles lowered. The family didn't move, they just kept staring wide-eyed, not sure if it was really over. We left them there, not because they were safe, there was no safety in that place, but because there was nowhere else for them to go. As we walked away, no one spoke. The silence stretched for minutes, broken only by the crunch of our boots and the occasional rustle of the jungle at the edge of the village. I could feel it in the air behind me, the mixed weight of what I'd done. Some of the guys I knew respected it. They'd seen me step in front of loaded rifles and hold my ground. In their eyes that took guts. Maybe even leadership. Others, not so much. I could almost hear their thoughts. He's soft. He's putting us at risk. One day it's gonna get someone killed. That's the thing about war. You don't just fight the enemy. You fight the people you eat with, sleep beside, depend on to watch your back. And sometimes the battle isn't over terrain or strategy. It's over what's left of your soul. That night, I lay in my hooch staring at the canvas overhead, the day's heat still radiating off my skin. I replayed it all, the moment I saw the family, the rifles coming up, the words I'd said. I wondered if I'd done the right thing, or if I'd just gambled my squad's safety on a feeling. In my gut, though, I knew the truth. In war, sometimes the only thing you have left is yourself. In war, sometimes the only thing you have left is yourself. When I first set foot in Vietnam, I believed I was bringing more than myself. I thought I was bringing freedom. That's what they told us back home. We were here to liberate a country trapped under the weight of communism, to bring democracy and opportunity. We were the cavalry riding in to rescue the innocent from the grip of an enemy that wanted to take their land, their rights, their future. I wanted to believe it. At 20 years old, belief came easy. The first months were a blur of sweat, mud, and noise, not just the noise of gunfire and helicopters, but the constant hum of tension, of not knowing if the next step would be on dry ground or on a mine. Still, I carried the mission like a shield. Every village we passed, every patrol we ran, I told myself we were making this place safer. But war has a way of peeling away the wrapping paper around a story. And what's underneath isn't always the gift you were promised. The first tear in the wrapping came after a firefight in the Highlands. We'd pushed a Viet Cong unit out of a hamlet, only to watch the artillery level the huts after they'd fled. It wasn't strategic. It wasn't necessary. It was just gone. The people who had lived there, farmers, grandmothers, children, were gone too. No one wrote that in the mission brief. Weeks turned into months. Patrol after patrol, the pattern kept repeating. We'd sweep through villages looking for enemy caches, tunnels, weapons. Sometimes we found them. More often we didn't. But even when we didn't, the villages were changed forever. Homes were destroyed, fields trampled, livestock scattered. I started to see it in the eyes of the people. Not gratitude, but something harder, quieter. Resentment. Still, I clung to the idea that maybe, in the long run, they'd understand. That maybe the pain now would mean freedom later. Then came the day that cracked the whole thing open. We were deep in the Mekong Delta, on a reconnaissance patrol that had gone bad. One moment we were moving through chest-high water, the next we were pinned down by fire from the tree line. Bullets whipped past, snapping branches overhead. The air smelled of mud, gunpowder, and fear. We crawled, slid, and stumbled our way out of the kill zone, each of us scattered and disoriented. I lost sight of my squad. I ran until my lungs burned, until the gunfire faded into the background. When I stopped, I was in the middle of a cluster of bamboo huts, the kind we were told to clear. A man stepped out. He was older, with skin like weathered leather and eyes that didn't flinch when they saw my uniform. He said nothing, just gestured for me to follow him. I hesitated. Every part of me screamed that this was a mistake. But then I heard voices in the distance shouting in Vietnamese, "Too many to fight." I followed him inside. His wife was there, along with a girl of maybe 10. The room was dim, smelling of wood smoke and something cooking over a low fire. They didn't speak English, I didn't speak Vietnamese, but in war, you learn to read the language of hands and eyes. The wife motioned for me to sit on the floor, in the shadow of a woven mat hung across the doorway. The girl brought me a bowl of water. My hands shook as I took it, not just from exhaustion but from the strangeness of it all. A Viet family hiding an American soldier in the middle of a war. Through the thin walls, I could hear movement outside, boots in the dirt, men calling to each other. The man sat near the door, calm as a stone. Every so often he'd glance at me and nod as if to say, "You're safe here." When the voices faded, they fed me rice. I hadn't eaten since before the ambush. We didn't talk, we couldn't, but there was a moment when the little girl looked up at me and smiled. Just a small, shy curve of the lips. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. No one had told me the enemy could smile. The next morning, before the sun rose, the man led me out the back of the hut and pointed toward the river. He gave me a push, gentle but firm, like a father sending a son on a long journey. I never saw them again. After that, the wrapping paper came off faster. I began to notice things I'd tried to ignore before, the way some officers talked about collateral damage as if it were just a supply issue, the way missions were planned for political impact rather than actual necessity, the way the people we were liberating kept disappearing into the jungle to fight against us. And I noticed something else. The North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong weren't fighting like a ragtag army clinging to survival. They were fighting like a people who had done this before. Who had pushed back empires, repelled invaders, survived against odds that would have broken other nations. The more I saw, the more it became clear. We weren't fighting a fractured insurgency. We were fighting a nation, one that believed in itself enough to bleed for generations if that's what it took. That realization didn't come in one moment. It was a slow tide pulling away everything I'd believed about why I was there. Each patrol, each destroyed village, each wary glance from a farmer's wife added weight to it. And with every ounce of that weight, my own conviction eroded. By the time my third year came around, I knew the truth I hadn't dared to say out loud before. We weren't liberators. We were occupiers. We hadn't come to free them from a foreign yoke. We were the yoke. And all the talk about democracy and freedom was just the sugar coating over a bitter pill. I carried that truth like a stone in my pocket for the rest of my tour. Some days it was heavy enough to pull me under. Other days I could almost forget it was there. But it was always there. And when I finally left Vietnam, it came home with me, lodged deep where no one could see it, but where I could feel it every single day. I carried that truth like a stone in my pocket. But stones aren't the only thing that weighs you down in a war. Sometimes it's smoke. It was late in my second year when we got the call. A village had been hit. The report didn't say by what, mortar fire, maybe artillery, but we were ordered in for mop-up and securing the area. We moved in under cover of night. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds, and the only light came from ahead, a dull, shifting glow that pulsed against the undersides of the clouds. As we got closer, the glow sharpened into shapes. Roofs, walls, and fire, so much fire it looked like the earth itself had cracked open and was bleeding light. The first wave of heat hit before we reached the edge of the village. It wasn't the gentle warmth of a campfire. It was a wall. It pushed against my chest, pressed on my face, made my eyes water before the smoke even reached me. And then came the smell. Heavy, sweet, acrid. It filled my head, coated my throat, sank into my clothes. I'd smelled it before, but never like this. Never in such suffocating waves. We entered through what had once been the main path. On either side, huts were engulfed, their bamboo frames bending and snapping under the weight of flames. Sparks lifted into the air like swarms of fireflies, only to die in the black smoke above. Somewhere in the chaos there were voices, crying, screaming, calling out names. But the sound was warped by the roar of the fire, stretched and pulled until it was barely human. A woman ran past me, her hair ablaze, her hands clutching something wrapped in cloth. She didn't look at me, she didn't see me, she just kept running toward the river. I don't know if she made it. Behind her, two men tried to tear open the remains of a collapsed hut. The fire drove them back again and again, each time singeing their clothes, their skin. I wanted to help, but the heat was like a living thing pushing us away, daring us to step closer. The air itself seemed alive, snapping, hissing, groaning as walls gave way and beams crashed down. I realized standing there that the fire was speaking louder than the people. And then I understood. The fire was swallowing the voices. There's something unnatural about watching a whole community disappear in minutes. People you'd seen that morning, walking to the well, tending to rice, talking in doorways, now reduced to shadows and smoke. One of my squad mates shouted that there were survivors near the far edge. We pushed through the heat, our eyes streaming, boots slipping in mud and ash. I saw a boy crouched beside what had been a fence, holding the hand of an older man who wasn't moving. He didn't cry. He just stared at me, blank, as if his face had been emptied of everything. We tried to gather who we could, leading them toward the riverbank where the smoke was thinner. But every few steps, another roof fell in, another wall collapsed, each one sending a fresh wave of sparks into the night. By the time the flames began to die, the village was gone. The survivors huddled by the water, silent except for the occasional cough or ragged breath. The fire had burned away not just their homes but their voices. And for me, it had burned the smell of that night deep into my bones. Even now, decades later, I can close my eyes and feel the heat, hear the muffled cries, taste the bittersweet ash in my mouth. Some things fade with time. That night never has. Some things fade with time. That night never has. When I finally left Vietnam, I thought I was leaving all of it behind. The heat, the noise, the smell. The fire. The fear. The way the air could taste like death. I told myself the plane ride home would be a line in the sand. On one side, the war. On the other, the rest of my life. But the truth is, the war didn't stay on its side of the line. It crossed with me. It walked off that plane at the same time I did. At first, I didn't notice. My family met me at the airport with hugs and handshakes, the way people greet a man who's made it back in one piece. There was a welcome home dinner, neighbors stopping by to shake my hand, ask me what it was like over there. I smiled, gave them the safe answers, told them about the weather, the food, the gear. I didn't talk about the smell, but it was waiting for me. A few days after coming home, I was walking past a diner on Main Street. The door opened and a gust of warm air hit me, and in it, the smell. Not exactly the same but close enough. Meat on a grill. The char. The sweetness under the smoke. My knees went soft. My vision tunneled. For a second, I wasn't in my hometown anymore. I was back in that village, watching the fire pull the roofs down, hearing voices swallowed by the flames. I don't remember getting home that day. I just remember sitting in the dark, every muscle in my body tight, waiting for my breathing to slow. It happened again the next week. And the week after that. At a friend's barbecue in the parking lot of a steakhouse, walking past a neighbor's backyard in summer. Every time my chest locked up, my hands shook, and the smell dragged me back across the ocean and decades into the past. I stopped eating meat altogether. At first, I told people it was for health. Then I stopped explaining. Meat wasn't food to me anymore, it was a trigger. Even the sight of it raw made my stomach turn. Cooking it was out of the question. The smell was worse than the taste. It didn't just remind me, it returned me. I learned to avoid it. I'd cross the street if I smelled a grill. I'd leave a party early if someone lit charcoal. I kept my windows closed in summer to keep the scent of backyard cookouts from sneaking in. But avoidance isn't the same as escape. You can't control the wind. You can't control other people's kitchens. You can't control the way a single whiff of something ordinary can open a trapdoor in your mind. It wasn't just the smell that followed me home. It was the way it changed the air around me. The way it pulled the color out of a sunny afternoon. The way it made every place, no matter how safe, feel temporary. Sometimes I'd be in the grocery store, passing the butcher counter, and the memory would hit so hard I'd grip the edge of the cart just to stay upright. I'd see the firelight flickering in the smoke, feel the heat pushing against my skin, hear the wet sound of someone trying to call out through the roar. Other times it came in dreams. I'd wake in the middle of the night with the smell still in my nose, sure the room was full of smoke. I'd open the windows, check the stove, pace the floor until my heart stopped pounding. Sleep never came easy after that. People say coming home is the end of the war. That's a lie we tell ourselves so we can smile at parades. The war doesn't end when the shooting stops. It doesn't care about borders or oceans or time zones. It plants itself inside you and it grows in the dark, waiting for the smallest thing to bring it back into the light. For me, that thing was the smell. And the older I get, the more I realize the smell isn't just in my head. It's in my breath. It's part of me. The war doesn't end when the guns go silent. It keeps going in your breath. The war doesn't end when the guns go silent. It keeps going in your breath. For a long time, I thought what I was carrying was just the usual war baggage. Nightmares, flashbacks, the startle when a car backfired, the way a sudden smell could turn the ground under my feet into something from another lifetime. People called it PTSD. I didn't argue. It fit, sort of. But it wasn't the whole picture. There's something else that doesn't get talked about as much. The military doesn't hand you a pamphlet for it. Civilians don't have parades to honor it. It's called moral injury. It's not about being afraid. It's about being broken in a place you can't point to on your body. It's what happens when you do something, or watch something, that cuts against everything you believe about right and wrong. And it doesn't matter if it was your choice or not. The damage is the same. In my case, it's not the times I pulled the trigger that haunt me most. It's the times I didn't, and the times I couldn't. I never regretted stepping in front of my squad to stop them from shooting those villagers. If anything, that's the one thing I still hold on to, the one decision I know for certain was right. But the flip side of that memory is the hundreds of others where I couldn't do anything. The night the fire swallowed the village whole. The boy holding the hand of the man who wasn't breathing. The woman running with something wrapped in cloth, too far for me to reach, too fast for me to follow. People like to think war is a series of choices. You do this or you do that. You save them or you don't. But the truth is, war traps you in moments where every choice is wrong, and all you can do is try to live with the one you made. And sometimes the wrong choice isn't something you did. It's something you failed to stop. That's what moral injury is. It's not just the guilt, it's the rewiring of who you are. You come home and look in the mirror and the face is the same, but the person behind it is altered. You carry the weight of things you didn't do, the people you didn't save, the moments you froze or obeyed or looked away. You tell yourself it was war. That no one could have done more. That you followed orders, that you did your job, that you stayed alive. But deep down you know it's not enough. You know there's a gap between what you believe about yourself and what you did, or didn't, do. And that gap never closes. For me, the smell is the trigger, but the moral injury is the wound it touches. Every time it comes back, it's not just the fire and the smoke, it's the look in the eyes of the ones I couldn't save. It's the sound of their voices before the flames took them. It's the knowledge that in the ledger of my life, there's a debt I'll never pay. I've heard people say you have to forgive yourself. Maybe they're right. But forgiveness feels like a luxury. Like a soft bed you have to earn, and I never did. What I carry is invisible. There's no scar you can run your fingers over, no limp, no missing piece of me you can point to and say, that's where it hurts. The deepest wound I have is the one you can't see. The deepest wound I have is the one you can't see. I'm an old man now. My war has been over for half a century, but some days it still wakes up and walks around like it owns the place. This morning I'm sitting by the window in my small kitchen. The light is soft, slanting in across the table. Outside, my neighbor has started his grill. The smoke curls upward in lazy ribbons, drifting over the fence toward me. For most of my life, I would have gotten up, shut the window, maybe gone to the other side of the house. I would have put as much distance between me and that smell as possible. But today, I don't move. I watch the smoke. I let it reach me. I close my eyes. I take a slow, deep breath. It still catches in my throat, still brings back the heat and the fire and the voices. But it also brings back something else. The faces. The people I met. The ones who lived and the ones who didn't. My granddaughter is sitting at the table, coloring in a book. She looks up and wrinkles her nose. Smells like barbecue, she says. I smile a little. That's what most people smell, I tell her. She tilts her head. What do you smell? I could give her the easy answer. I could say nothing and change the subject. But she's old enough now to hear more. And maybe I'm old enough to tell it. I smell a place far from here, I say. I smell a night when the sky was orange and the air was thick and everything I thought I knew about the world was burning. She puts her crayon down. Is that why you don't eat meat? I nod. Yes. A long time ago, in a war I fought when I was just a little older than your dad is now, I learned that burning meat doesn't always mean food. Sometimes it means loss. Sometimes it means you've just watched a piece of the world disappear and you can't get it back. She's quiet for a while, like she's not sure if she's supposed to be sad. Then she asks, "Did you save them?" I swallow. Not all of them. Not enough of them. Outside, the smoke keeps rising. The neighbor laughs at something I can't hear. Somewhere, someone is clinking plates and pouring drinks. Life goes on like it always does. Why are you telling me this? She asks. I look at her, really look at her. This bright little human who's never heard a shot fired in anger, who's never had to run toward screams or away from fire. Because someday someone might tell you a story about war, I say. And they might make it sound noble or exciting or necessary. They might tell you it's about protecting people or spreading freedom or defending what's right. And maybe sometimes it is. But it's also about loss. It's about the parts of yourself you can't get back. War doesn't just kill bodies. It kills pieces of souls. Sometimes yours, sometimes someone else's. Her eyes search my face. Did it kill yours? I think about the man I was when I first stepped off that plane in Vietnam. Young, sure of the mission, believing in the story I'd been told. I think about the man who came home, older, quieter, carrying things no one could see. It took some of it, I admit. But I'm still here. I've still got enough to tell you this. She nods slowly like she's filing the words away for later. The smoke drifts in again. I don't flinch this time. Maybe I never will. Maybe I always will. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I can sit here in this chair with this child and not run from it. I reach across the table and tap her crayon. You keep drawing. You keep making things. That's how you fight it. That's how you make sure it doesn't take more than it already has. She smiles and goes back to her picture. I turn back to the window. The grill pops and hisses. The neighbor flips something over. More smoke rises. My chest tightens, but I let the memory walk through me and then I let it go. Not because I've forgiven it, but because I want the space for something else. I'm not afraid of dying. I've been close enough to it to know what it looks like. I'm afraid of forgetting who I am.